All right, we'll begin call the committee to order and discuss on the agenda the bill before us. Senate Bill 2001, special session. Most of y'all have already been briefed on it, but I'll go through the talking points. This is a company project to bring a hyperscale data center complex to two Madison County Industrial Park sites and other sites to be determined in the future as they grow. The target data completion is early 2027 for the first phase, and this is a total of 1,000 careers, and the employees' pay will be at 125% or greater of the state average wage, which is around $60,000, plus benefits. The two sites in Madison County consist of one site that is 927 acres, that is the Canton mega site, and another 786-acre site that is in the south part of Madison County in Ridgeland, just north of Interstate I-20. As part of the agreement, the local public infrastructure commitment from the local entity has a total of $215 million. A little over 15 million of it will be for road infrastructure in the sites, water system for over 15 million, a sewer system, 171 million, and they are building a custom built water reclamation facility, a gray water facility that's very environmentally friendly. This also includes 13 million for equipment and a new fire station. There is, from the state's perspective, we are putting in 32 million, and that is broken down by 16 million for customizable training, recruitment, relocation, and other qualifying expenses. That is a 50-50 match with the company, that they would have to spend 32 million to get the 16 million. It also has $10 million to develop and implement engineering, artificial intelligence, data science, and/or industrial technology programs at state institutions of higher learning. And there's a minimum commitment of $3 million dedicated to historically Black colleges and universities, predominantly Black institutions, and minority serving institutions that serve groups such as veterans or disabled. There's also $4 million to help develop and implement a K-12 pipeline program, and those are for schools within the area to help put seed into the K-12 programs as well. There's also $2 million for support for workforce training and certification programs at the IHL Community College. And that is at locations to be mutually agreed upon between the company and Accelerate Mississippi. This is helping to train the trainers in the local communities to keep the folks coming for workforce. MDA will require an agreement between Accelerate Mississippi and the company on qualified institutions and programs prior to release of these funds. The tax incentives to the company, the 10-year 100% corporate income tax exemption start no later than 24 months after date of completion. There's a franchise tax fee in lieu of payment, not to exceed $25,000 until it phases out in 2028. There's also a sales and use tax incentive for construction and any special expenditures made 12 months post-construction. There's a construction investment rebate on the cost of construction that will be go back to the company. There is a sales and use tax perpetual exemption on equipment. Right now in statute, there's already that if a $20 million investment in 20 jobs is made, it triggers that. They will be doing more than that. And so this is to help streamline and reduce the amount of paperwork and bureaucracy involved in this project. That's why that perpetual exemption is there. The rolling state tax exemptions, if the company continues to make above and beyond the $10 billion investment that they're making, if they continue to make investments of over 500 million and hire 50 additional jobs, there's a rolling state tax exemption. All of these benefits will sunset in 2057. Clawbacks, the clawbacks for this, there is a suspension of any corporate income and sales and use tax if there is any, if the company does not meet the total investment or annual job maintenance requirement. And they have a 24-month opportunity to cure period. However, the term will continue to roll, so the penalty will just be the loss of benefit. The the county will have a property tax fee in lieu agreement with the local jurisdictions. And this property fee in lieu agreement that they have will also go to repay the bonds for the public infrastructure dollars as a pass-through. MDA will have the proceeds for the bond funds made available to the county, Makita, and as the project infrastructure improvements are made, they will disperse those funds. The county, starting year one, the company has agreed to a floor payment that will begin to repay the bonds, and the county will make payments on those bonds starting in year one. There's also $5 million for dedicated site development support. These funds are to help some of these communities in the purpose of expansion down the road. That they'll have $5 million for dedicated site development support. And there's also $6 million for long-term state agency support. There's estimated about 5 agencies that will help oversee the implementation of this. And this basically allocates about $1 million a year to be split amongst 5 agencies for engineers, auditors, accountants, environmental experts to help facilitate the implementation of this project. The other aspect of this legislation is accelerating certain public utility approval requirements. And this is a big part of the legislation because speed to market is the #1 issue for this project. This legislation will help shorten the time period for periodic review and approval of routine filings from 120 days to 30 days. It also, the legislature is basically stating that there is a need of necessity and public convenience for this project. Therefore, the CCN certificate, the legislature is finding that there is a need for it, and similar to the way we've done CONs in the past for hospitals or nursing homes, we are providing that there is a certificate of convenience and public convenience and necessity for this project. There's also a rate agreement approval using the normal criteria of the Mississippi Public Service Commission. And the Mississippi Public Service Commission retains all regulatory authority to determine the prudency of cost incurred and what costs can be recovered through rates. The cherry on top of this is that there's another project that will be injecting billions of dollars of investment into Mississippi, and that's through Energy's efforts here for power generation and transmission. And some of these projects are going to be occurring in Hinds, Washington, and Tallahatchie County. So Energy is going to be stepping up to the plate to meet the deadline for the customer, and they are going to be investing a lot of money, multiple billions of dollars in Mississippi for this project. So that is an overview of what the bill does. I'll be happy to once again kind of go over the numbers. The public infrastructure that we'll be bonding for is around $215 million. The investment from the state's around $44 million. The total blanket bond that's going to cover the entire project to backstop it is $260 million. And it will be reduced by any cash that is appropriated through the appropriation bills here. But I think that the #1 thrust of this legislation shows that this is our skin in the game. The $44 million the state is putting in is investment in our people and our state through site development and through training at our local community colleges, K through 12, IHL institutions, and investing in our people and training them to be prepared for these jobs. This is a new industry, as the governor said, coming to our state. And we want to make sure that we're investing and putting people in place to have the opportunity to fill these positions. And like I said, the county is paying back the local infrastructure portion of this through their fee in lieu agreement. So that is the explanation of the bill. I will open up for any questions. We have our friends from MDA here, and I know there's some representatives from Energy here that are, if we have any questions, but I'll be happy to entertain any questions from the committee. Senator Horn for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking here under the training grants and the $16 million in customizable training, $10 million to develop AI data science and industrial technology programs. And then 4 million to develop and implement a K-12 pipeline program. Is there someone, can you talk, Mr. Chairman, about the training and how it all will work, or can we get someone from MDA or Accelerate?
I'll allow Mr. Court to answer the question for you, to kind of get more specific about the training grants that are provided for in the legislation.
So Mr. Cork, how is the pipeline program going to be developed? Is that going to be done by the State Board of Education?
So thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman. Senator Horn, we have a multi-layered approach to the workforce development training here. The first goal is the $2 million that we have earmarked for what we'll call Train the Trainer. That's going to be the most urgent need, which is to develop. Can you hear me?
Pull the mic up to you. There you go.
I'm getting used to this. All right. We're going to have a multi-layered strategy with respect to training. The first and most urgent priority is to get the trainers that are going to train our people in the various institutions trained. So that's second $2 million line item for institutions of higher learning, community college. These will be the programs that will be put in place to sort of create the evangelists that'll go out into the community and help motivate the programs in the various regional educational pipelines that we're going to try to develop. Let me just back up and say this. The company that we are considering here already has well-established STEM education curriculum for K through 12, certification programs for the types of skills that are going to be needed, branded programs that are really internationally renowned. So we're not going to have to reinvent the wheel. What we're going to do is partner with that company to develop their programs and embed them in our regional ecosystem. So when you describe, how would this really play out? We're going to get the team built and trained that can evangelize it in the community, and then work with the company's HR department and their training teams to embed these programs into the various K through 12, community college, career technical education, and institutions of higher learning, as well as other venues, non-traditional educational pathways like some of the nonprofits in town, coding academies, or like the Bean Path here in Jackson, which is trying to do some really interesting issues with AI collaborative. So I say all that to say there isn't a definitive training and education plan yet, but we do have the basic architecture outlined where we have some seed money to put into those programs. And as they're developed, approved, and evolved, MDA will then appropriate the money to those recipient agencies.
Let me rephrase my question. How will participation in the pipeline be determined?
Which in terms of which institutions will be determined?
K-12 pipeline.
The K through 12 pipeline, well, it's going to be resource limited, but we're hoping we find some people in the various school districts throughout the Jackson metro region that will nominate themselves to participate in working groups to put these programs together. And we think the broader we can make this, the better. So there's nobody's excluded from that approach.
Right. As it relates to the development of programs at IHL, there's a $10 million allocation. Are these allocations one-time? Excuse me. Are these one-time dollars?
Yes, these are one-time dollars, but we're also convinced that once we establish the training opportunities, that the company will be willing to also provide additional resources, including potentially equipment or staff to help with these programs, or even potentially dollars. So this is just our attempt to demonstrate how serious we are about delivering workforce here in Mississippi.
And there's a $3 million, $3 million of that at minimum for the development of these programs is going to be dedicated to HBCUs. What PBIs, MSIs, what are those?
Predominantly Black institutions and minority serving institutions. So it's really designed to cover the gambit. So not only just higher ed, but it could be any type of organization or nonprofit that is interested in serving these communities and providing the training and education. The intent here is to broaden that so that it isn't just an earmark just for, say, IHL institutions, but allows multiple alternative pathways to bring people to the workforce and get them trained.
So this project is in 2 sites, and the southern site is within a couple of miles of Tougaloo College. Would Tougaloo be able to participate in this program?
Absolutely. And in fact, we know, for example, that because of the property tax this project will be paying into Madison County, we know that the Madison County schools, the Canton School District, and the community college are going to have plenty of resources. The intent with this money and the governor's very specific direction to MDA was to make sure that if we're going to land this project in Madison County, that the broader Metroplex area around Jackson participates, and particularly to make sure that if we're going to have this kind of transformational project in our region, to make sure that underserved communities in Jackson and in the regional area have a seat at the table and that are funded and resourced to participate in all the upside that this brings.
And based on what I've been, what has been shared with me over the last few days, this project could have a transformative impact on central Mississippi, certainly, if not the entire state. But our ability to leverage the opportunity is going to be tied to how well we train our workforce, it seems to me. So I like the path that you all are going down with what you're proposing here today. But are we going to have some serious conversations with Accelerate Mississippi on sprucing up or maybe rethinking some of what we're doing from a workforce development standpoint?
Well, my belief on this particular project, the short answer is yes. But I'd like to expand just a little bit on that. I think the concept of operations and what we have embedded in our agreement with the company is that this will be a trilateral relationship between Accelerate Mississippi, the company, and MDA. Accelerate Mississippi and the company pioneering and brainchilding the programs, doing the outreach, making sure that we have the broadest possible participation, but that MDA will hold the purse and make sure that where this money is going to the things that actually will produce results. So there's accountability all the way around in the process. How this is all going to play out, we're going to learn together. This is going to be so transformational that I don't think we know what the possibilities are yet, but we do know that we've got skin in the game. The company has ready-made programs that are proven to work. And I believe that Mississippians will rise up to that challenge, plug into that process, and create a really amazing result. We just don't know exactly how it's going to work yet, and that's why we all have to work together to make it happen.
Thank you. And one final question, and this goes back to a question I asked last week at the special session, and that has to deal with minority participation. And on this sheet, it says, use of Mississippi contractors is encouraged but not mandated. And I get that the competition outside the state and our companies competing outside the state and so forth. And affirmative outreach to minority and small businesses required but not mandated. So that wording is a little confusing to me. Are we saying that we're encouraging folks or requiring them to do outreach, but not requiring them to actually utilize minority participation?
That's right. We don't have a mandatory requirement for like a percentage set aside for contracting or employment. What I will say, and I think it's really important to understand with this particular company, I don't think this is going to be an issue. This company has it baked into their culture to ensure broad outreach and participation by all communities. And I think whatever we would put in writing in the contract wouldn't do justice what I think this company would be already built into its culture to do.
And I know we're not putting any state dollars, well, so I guess on the clearing and grub and the pad and all that, we're putting some money in. But other companies are going to be doing work also that won't be working, say, directly for this company. Is MDA also sharing that same message with them?
We are, and the governor's made it very clear throughout the negotiations that he's in favor of, advocating for and supporting Mississippi companies. I think once this project is disclosed, you will learn very quickly which Mississippi companies have already been in play to support this effort, and I think you'll be very pleased with the outcome.
And are any of them minority that are engaged?
I'm not going to get into what the company's decisions are in this public hearing.
No, what I'm saying is, are any of the companies that are already engaged minority-owned companies?
I'm not going to disclose that at this time. That's the company's business to disclose. The governor made it very clear in his press conference yesterday that we are here to create outreach. We are here to mobilize the state of Mississippi to respond to these efforts, but we're not going to get in the business of picking winners and losers or keeping score.
Okay, so my question is, we You mentioned that as soon as we put tie the bow on this, some of those companies are going to be announced who are already in the mix, right? Isn't that what you just said?
I'm telling you that the work is in progress, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other questions from me? Senator, for question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at this section starting on page 151 at line 3775. It appears to me to read as it's given either the Board of Supervisors or the city government the authority to enter into agreements to divert some of those funds that would be going to the schools. Am I reading that correctly?
What line are you referring to specifically?
150, on page 151, starting at 3775, it says any such county and or municipality may enter into one or more agreements with the authority or Mississippi Development Authority approved by the Board of Supervisors of such county and or the governing authority of the municipality as applicable to remit to the authority or Mississippi Development Authority as applicable on an annual or other periodic basis for a duration up to 30 years, a portion of any fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes together with any portion of any ad valorem taxes that the county and or municipality derives from the project.
Yeah, I think that's part of the fee in lieu agreement that they're using to pay back for the public infrastructure that's going in for the project itself.
Okay, I was just trying to make sure that I was reading that correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Fillingane for a question.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And this is a great project and very excited about it. If Mr. Cork or someone of his designation could tell us with this huge capital investment, what tax will actually be paid or what types of taxes? Because as we were briefly going through the highlights, there seems to be some fee in lieu, there seem to be some exemptions, permanent exemptions, partial exemptions. I'm just curious, with a project of this magnitude, what kind of taxes will the state and or the county be realizing from this project?
Thank you. Mr. Cork?
Yes, starting with the state first. They will be paying corporate income tax after their 10-year exemption expires. They will be paying payroll withholding tax, which has not been exempted or rebated under this program. They will be paying the MPC tax, which is a tax on additional investment that's made by contractors. And there will be a rebate associated with that, but they'll still be paying 10% of that tax. Our estimation is that just with the initial first tranche of investment that we know is already planned, that all the state's investment will be paid back within 10 months. And then there'll be revenue for miles after that. The state economist reports in front of you. We don't take issue with the results, but I think they said the tax revenue to the state in the first 15 years, and this is a very low estimate because we have a very low bar that we've set, is over $157 million paid to the state in the first 15 years. I think that number's right, but you've got check the conclusion in the report in front of you.
So are there any taxes being paid on the equipment? Because that's really where the largest part, as I can ascertain, of the capital expenditure is. Is that a complete exemption on any taxes paid on the equipment, the computers and whatnot?
Yes, it is. In fact, as you probably know, Senator, the state tax on computer equipment is 7%. When you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar operation with a vast majority of the cost of these facilities being in equipment, and you're talking about computers, imagine how often you have to change out your cell phone every couple of years. Servers and storage devices are no different. So hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of those will have to be changed out every few years at 7%. If we charge that tax, they would not be talking to us today. In fact, the state of Arkansas recently passed a similar exemption on a minimum of a $500 million investment and $1 million in payroll. They get 100% tax exemption on everything. So we have set our recurring investment at the Arkansas level of investment. And we are going to offer a perpetual sales and use tax exemption on the equipment in the buildings as that goes forward. If we did not offer that, we would not be competitive with other states that are securing these projects. So we wouldn't be here talking about it. And our tax on that is actually very high. And if we're going to think about tax reform, that's another place that we should be thinking about it, because it's one of the highest taxes on computer equipment in the United States today.
Thank you, Senator. Any further questions? Senator Barrett for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Court, because of non-disclosure agreements and things such as that, to certain or some Mississippians, this may appear to be a rushed decision. Have you guys properly vetted and looked at state economists, looked at the risk reward analysis for the state? And if so, do you think this is in the state's benefit?
I would argue that if you own a 401k, you've already vetted this company. I think when you see the announcement, I think you'll recognize that we've made probably the very best choice we could have made.
Senator Polk for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question is this. This is a good deal. From all the looks on the paper, it's a good deal for Mississippi. My question will be, when there's a good deal, you have to look at the future. Have you identified anything in the next year or two or three that could cause us angst and bring us back to have to vote on something to solve a situation that we see, but we haven't talked about?
No, I think, do we have any red flags that still remain, Senator? I think the answer is no. There's always a risk with any company's ability to perform because they're facing market conditions that we may not be to control a couple of years from now, supply chain issues, pandemics, floods, acts of God only knows what. We had a lot of deals in progress during the COVID pandemic, and MDA had to go back and renegotiate those deals to deal with, outstanding loans that we had to refinance and restructure. So we are constantly adapting to whatever those changing circumstances are. But as I said last week, choosing the right counterparty for these deals is really the smart thing to do. This is not a startup. This is a household name, a diversified company, and one that's going to get a return on investment. And the other thing I would simply say about the future is that this is cloud computing. That's what these hyperscale data centers are. Think about how much data we are assembling and amassing today, from everything from our cars to our phones, the kinds of amazing things that are transforming with data. And we're just on the very early cutting edge of where this technology is going. And so the capacity to build the compute and the storage here in Mississippi that's on the leading edge of the future technological transformation of the state, I think is just, we're going to be in the early stages. We're going to be the second largest announcement that this company's made in North America. And that's just not without compare. So it is big risk, big reward. But I ask you this, what do we have at risk? The only thing we have at risk is that they don't pay off some infrastructure that could use for somebody else, and for training in our people that can use those skills somewhere else. This is probably the best deal we'll ever have in our lifetime, because the company's not really asking anything from us. They're here to contribute. So the worst case scenario is they don't build this thing out, and we've got an empty industrial park and a lot of infrastructure, which quite frankly, I wish we had more of in Mississippi because I could sell them tomorrow. I guess that's my answer.
Just to follow up on that, this is going to be a huge energy user. Are we a huge energy user? Are we going to be faced with any type of energy issues in the next 2 or 3 years because of this project?
That's a very good question. And let me just say, Last summer, the governor asked me to come up with some ideas for a second term strategy for economic development for his second term. And there were 5 issues that I presented to him, and the number 1 issue was energy. If we want to be a leading economic development state, if we want to stay ahead of where everybody else is in the world, we are going to have to figure out how to deliver power, because manufacturing today is all automated. Most of our civic life is going to be automated. It's all going to be computed, and all that requires vast quantities of energy. So if we want to improve our gross domestic product and come out of last place into first place, we have to be able to deliver great alternative, clean, and affordable power very fast and to a market that needs it immediately. And that speed to market, as the governor mentioned, is key. So that's the context. If we want to be the economic development state of the future, we have to master power. And I will say this, there's no reason why we shouldn't. Our size is actually our strength. We can literally put a whole of government approach together. We all know each other in the regulatory bodies. We should be able to figure out how to resource this and be better and faster than the big states who are mired in giant bureaucracies and organizational structure. That was one of our value propositions, and we need to deliver on that. Now, to the heart of your question on what happens with what we hear around the United States about power breakdowns and rolling blackouts and that sort of thing, I am convinced, being briefed by Entergy and the company, that they have a strategy that is going to make this company fully financially responsible for all the power it will consume, with enough frictional capacity to actually benefit the rate base and actually stabilize rates and provide additional capacity in there for when we have these surges that are going on. And that financial cost is going to be borne by the company. So for example, they're going to be 100% green at some point, and we all know the issues with solar power. We also know the issues with cost. The company's going to bear the cost of that, and it's not going to hit our rate base. So we're going to be able to transform our technological economy using the power of the purchasing power of this company and not hurt the rate base in the process. I think that's a win-win solution. Now, I can't promise what else is going to happen in the market with the electrification demand and mobility changes and how that could impact us. But I feel if we can put this whole of government approach together and we can stay with energy as in forefront of mind, we can stay on top of that and have immediate and faster responses than other states may have, which will position us better to be competitive for the jobs of the future. So I think it's the biggest challenge we face. It used to be that it was sites. Then it used to be that it was incentives. And now we've heard a lot about workforce. The problem of the future is going to be power and fiber. That's going to be our next challenge. And we are standing on the doorstep of that today by dealing with this project. And so I just urge all of you to think about where we will be 10 years from now if we make this decision today. It'll be transformational for the state.
Thank you, Senator Polk. Senator Jordan for a question.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Chairman. Sir, I'm fully supportive of this program, but from the Mississippi Delta, how is this going to benefit us in that area of the state? You said that this will help the state of Mississippi. We all know that rising tides lift all boats. How will we be involved in any kind of benefits from this major project?
There's going to be immediate benefits financially for the Mississippi Delta for this from this project. In fact, we could coin the phrase today that this massive data center cluster is going to be powered by the Mississippi Delta. And that's what's so exciting about this, because the wealth is going to be spread across the state. We've been told by Entergy that there's at least 3 counties, which the chairman named earlier, Washington, Tallahatchie, and Hines, that will receive immediate benefit, that they're already in the pipeline for expanded power. I know for a fact there's a minimum of 2 other Delta counties that are on the short list for future investment, but it's too premature to name those counties. But this is going to be a hyperscale data center clustered, powered by the Mississippi Delta. And why is that good for the Delta? We all know the challenges the Delta has with population outmigration and disinvestment. In order to fix that and turn it around, you've got to start with stopping the bleeding on your financial system. So all of these power projects that are going to hit the Delta, the first thing they're going to be able to do is generate property tax revenues that will then be able to be reinvested to stabilize those markets. And that's the financial foundation that will help to lift the boat. It's going to be a long time, but this investment is the first way we can see that'll be a multi-billion-dollar investment in the Delta. And that's just in the early phases. This is a multi-year, multi-phase process, hopefully, if we can get this right, that will help, that everybody will benefit. So not to mention, it's literally in the commuting shed for this project. You'll have folks in the Delta working there. You'll, and we realize it's, you know, it's a commute into Madison County initially, but I will tell you that the company has expansion plans and are looking at other places closer to Delta real estate. So, you know, stay tuned. And I know you've had promises before, but these promises are coming and they're coming fast. So, and if in a year from now, if we're having this conversation and nothing's been done, then I'll take my licks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Simmons, you have a question?
I do.
All right, you recognize?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, Bill. I know a lot of Mississippians out there, once we have an investment project this size and also a commitment of the number of jobs that we are telling everyone, 1,000 jobs. I know the question is, when do we expect the thousand jobs commitment to be fulfilled by the company?
So the contractual commitment on the jobs is a long ramp up period. But as I stated in our private meetings, we know that a lot of these estimates are understated and the deadlines are extended. That's by design. The company does not want to disclose its trade secrets and doesn't want to tell its competition in the world what they're doing. The company, and I think MDA agrees, that 10 billion is pretty much good enough and 1,000 jobs is pretty much good enough to get the benefits that they've offered. But let me say this. This is as we've said repeatedly, this is a speed to market situation. So while the job commitments may be relatively low and the time frame may be relatively long, they can't operate these things without people. So as long as this construction is going on and they hit their schedules, they're going to exceed their job requirements rather quickly. I'll also point out to you, while the contract does have some salary level guarantees and such in it, these are also, again, very low estimates. And the company is, you know, for high-tech jobs, if you want to get them, you're going to have to pay. So I think 1,000 is very conservative as part of this program. And let me just say again, a lot of this power isn't in the ground yet. So they can't grow unless we can plug them in. So it's hard for us to expect them to fulfill their job commitments if we can't plug them in. So the contract is designed to make sure that both parties are mutually incented to get them plugged in and get them running as fast as possible. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. All right, any other questions? Senator Sparks for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cork, you were asked about vetting MDA. Obviously, you've done your due diligence, but you also have a major utility provider who you've mentioned on multiple occasions is investing tremendous amount of funds. So we've double vetted this to a certain degree, have we not?
Affirmative.
And looking at the big picture, I represent the northeast corner. I'm not asking you what this does for my Senate district, because projects that came recently to the Columbus area are using a tremendous amount of energy provided by a different energy provider. But if we have the opportunity to build out for this state, for the future, energy generation, that number one, replacement is going to burn twice as efficient as current generation, that's going to reduce the cost to ratepayers across central Mississippi, is it not?
It will.
And then on top of that, we see coal-fired plants and hydro now out west being shut down due to local regulation. That's that state's decision. If they want to make a decision to run business out of different states, the people who have available power will be where they land. Is that not accurate?
Yes, it is. And in fact, I've written a white paper and socialized it with the governor on this very topic.
Okay, so this is much bigger than anybody's region, any job training project or any one industry as much as we appreciate these folks coming to the state of Mississippi. This is about the future of where a lot of businesses will land, and we want them to land right here in Mississippi.
We do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, for a motion? Motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion and rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, thank you.